Cassidy Beck. I am an assistant producer on the Call to Create podcast. I have loved working with the podcast team where we get to hear the stories of amazing creatives. Today's episode is no exception. I'm delighted to share with you an interview with MD House, who is currently serving as president of LDSPMA. He's here to tell us a little bit more about the organization and his own creative journey. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you for having me.
In late 2020, MD House semi-retired from a successful career in corporate finance and business leadership that allowed him to experience all facets of design, producing, marketing, and selling products to customers worldwide. His passion for creative writing has been a tremendous blessing. His books include Patriot Star, Kindred Star, Crossroads of Awakening Memory, Sophia, Daughter of Barabbas, The Barabbas Legacy, Pillars of Barabbas, The Servant of Helaman, I Was Called Barabbas, Amulet Revelant, The Barabbas Companion, Shadow Hunters of Helaman. His docket has filled with new projects. I talk about LDSPMA a lot. I really love this organization, and I thought, I want listeners to know what it is, who we are, and so take it away.
Well, I discovered Latter-day Saints in publishing, media, and the arts about 3.5 years ago. Just stumbled upon it, I think, in a Facebook post or something, and they were advertising their annual conference, which is in October. And I thought, well, I had semi-retired about 5 years ago from now. So I'd been semi-retired for a couple of years, and I thought I would check it out. And my expectations were low because I know how these things go. You find something that looks really cool and you go there and it's kind of, yeah, it's okay. But I was blown away. I loved it. And I loved the keynote speakers. They had some good classes. I got to meet a lot of really great people. And at the end of that conference, I decided to go ahead and help do some volunteering with the organization because it is a almost exclusively volunteer-run organization. We have 2 part-time employees, and then everything else is volunteer. So I started to volunteer a little bit and got involved in a couple of things. We ended up setting up a one-on-one mentoring program that just turned out fantastic because of the members, especially the mentors who were willing to provide mentorship one-on-one with other members of LDSPMA at below market rates. So they weren't getting their normal market rates for this mentoring, but they were willing to do that. They stepped up. It turned out to be a great program. Jen Brewer, who was the president of LDSPMA, asked me to become one of the vice presidents, which caught me a little by surprise. And I did that thinking that, okay, that's fine. There was another vice president, so there were 2 of us. And then I had this idea that we could extend the president terms to 2 years, thinking that Jen could go another year, and then this other person would become the president. Things worked out such that that vice president had to leave, and Jen didn't want to extend the other year. She had some other things happening. And so I became the president in October. So I'm now president of LDSPMA, and I love it. I love the organization, and we're having a lot of fun. We're trying to do some new things, but also make sure we're doing the things that we already do well, that we continue to do those well.
I love it. And I feel like I kind of want to share my experience with LDSPMA.
Yes.
Because I also found it like you, I'm an aspiring writer and I love writing. I also feel like it can be a little bit of a lonely venture, right? Because your ideal thing is you're just working on it by yourself. My ideal is like in a quiet room that I can brainstorm and get all of the thoughts and all the things out, but it can be a little bit lonely. And so I had first heard about Storymakers, which is a wonderful conference. I went there first, and I like to talk about imposter syndrome. For me, I had major imposter syndrome at that moment because I was like, who am I to be here? Like, I did have a full manuscript, but that was it, And it was like the first draft of the first one. And so I was like, what do I do from here?
What was it?
It was fiction.
Okay.
And so at that point, I was like, what do I do? And the keynote speaker gave just a wonderful speech, and it spoke directly to me. She said, what qualifies you as a writer that you write? And I feel like that's the same thing as a musician, as an artist. Like what makes you an artist or a writer is that you do it and then you practice it and that you enjoy doing it. It isn't like, and it's funny speaking to you because you are a very accomplished author, that you have written a lot, you've published a lot. But I think the thing that we all have to start somewhere. And the thing thing that makes you a writer or any of those things is that you do it. And so then I was like, okay, this, I do belong here. And then I found LDSPMA. And I think what I love about LDSPMA is definitely for authors, but it is also for editors, it's for writers, it's for musicians, it's for filmmakers, it's for artists, it's for influencers, and it's
Yeah.
also like any media. And so I just feel like you go in there and there's just like a creative vibe, a bug. And I was like, let me catch that. These are my people.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love that I also feel like it was a really good balance. Like there were a lot more males in LDSPMA. And I think it is nice that although my writing, I feel like gears more towards a female audience,
Mhm.
I want to like write in a way that can be attractive to both, to everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that different people, like I feel like we can learn and grow from each other. And so that is my LDSPMA story.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And you're right. We distinguish ourselves in a couple of ways from some other related types of organizations in that we address more than just the authoring community or the book publishing community. But the second thing is we don't shy away from the LDS part of our name. We're not going to step back from the principles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's our home. And what we're trying to do is help each other spread the light of the restored gospel throughout the earth. That's our purpose. That's our mission. Our vision is to flood the earth with light. And our mission is to provide professional development to people of faith involved in creating uplifting writing, art, music, and media. And of course, again, we don't shy away from the LDS part of that. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't get involved with people of other Christian faiths, because we do. And in fact, at this last conference, were you perchance at this past
Oh,
conference?
yes.
So you would have seen that we had Pastor Jeff McCullough there.
I loved it.
Hello Saints, right? The YouTube
Mhm.
channel Hello Saints, and he was there with Kurt Frankum,
Mhm.
and they gave a presentation. They gave a class, and it was excellent. I went to that class, and so we're trying to build some of these bridges because there are lots of things we can accomplish as Christians together, right? With members of other faiths. Another thing I'll tell you about right now, and this is a little bit of a teaser, and we're starting to tease it out a little. But one of the people I met at this past conference is Carmen Musgrip, and she's LDS, her and her husband, and they ran a very successful business and then retired, and now they spend their time doing philanthropic activities, getting involved in all kinds of things, including some interfaith activities. And she was at the conference and she started up a Christian radio station called Tombslayer Radio. You may have seen their
Yeah.
table there, and they also sponsored one of the snack tables at the conference. I got to talking to her, and she was really excited about the conference. It was the first time she'd been there. I don't remember how she found us, but she found us and she was there and she loved it. And we got to talking, and we decided, what if we were to put together some sort of a Christian Creatives Expo that is multi-denominational and invited everybody to share, and it would be a public event. So we would invite the general public into this event where creators could share their creative enterprises. And so we've started to give that legs. It's going to happen in 2026 in the spring, probably in Orlando. And she's already reached out to lots of people. Pastor Jeff McCullough is going to be involved. Kurt Frankum's going to be involved. I'll be involved. We've got a couple of other people from our side that'll be involved. We'll be partnering with them. LDSPMA will partner with her group and all these other faith members, faith leaders, to put together this Christian Creatives Conference in Orlando, which should be, boy, just a ton of fun.
That's awesome. I am in Idaho right now, and I had
Mhm.
the opportunity to go. It was a Christian collaboration of Connection is a Cure. Another one that I have went to that was like a Christian collaboration was The
Mhm.
Chosen. Actors and actresses from The Chosen came.
Mhm.
It was exceptional. I feel like there is something so special about being in a room of believers that I
Yeah.
love. So that's incredible.
Did you see Dallas Jenkins's speech that he gave at
Oh,
BYU?
it was so good. The fish and
Amazing.
loaves. Such
Really,
so
really good.
good. Yes, it was so good. It was so good. Yeah. One question I have, I
Yeah.
do talk about this conference a lot, and one of the things that I'm having, like a question that I get, and so I'd love to hear how, if you get this question, how you respond to it,
Okay.
is so like we are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but we're not like endorsed by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Correct.
And
Correct.
so, because I am also a volunteer, the question that I got is like, oh, you're working for the church. How would you respond to that?
We are aligned with the principles and the doctrines of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We are not officially endorsed by the church, but we enjoy a number of high-level contacts with the church, and we like to collaborate and partner with the church in some of the things it's trying to achieve. So, for instance, at the past conference, Sister Kristen Yee
Yeah.
was one of our keynote speakers. And that was the first time that we had had a currently sitting member of a general presidency speak to us at our conference. We'd had Bonnie Oscarson before, we'd had Gerald Lund before, that had been general officers of the church in the past, but this was the first current sitting member, and it was wonderful. And she took her calling very seriously because after that address, which was about 45 minutes long, and it was very good, she spent more than 3 hours personally ministering to anyone who wanted to talk to her. And we had a long line of people that wanted to talk to Sister Yi. And she wasn't looking at them saying, hey, okay, I got 30 seconds, and then I got to get to the next person. It was, what do you want to tell me? And then one on one, she ministered to that person until they were done. And then she went to the next person. And that is exactly how Christ would have done it. And it was so beautiful. We didn't expect it. We thought maybe 45 minutes she'd do a meet and greet and be done. Near the end of her time there, I was standing there with Arthur Jew, who's our vice president, and he knows Sister Yi. And he said, hey, do you want me to introduce you to Sister Yi? And I said, no, let her go home when she's done. Let her go home. She doesn't need to meet me. She is doing the work that she needs to do. And when she's done, let her go home. But it was wonderful. Really, really good.
So that is like one of my biggest regrets about this conference. I love the conference. Her talk was exceptional. I thought
Yeah.
it was so good. Yes, she does. I also think like she spoke in the conference right before in the general conference, and it was so great because you got to know her a
Mhm.
little bit there, and then she expanded on the things that she said.
Yes.
It
Perfect
was.
timing for us.
Yes, it really was. But then that line, I am an impatient lady. And that line, I couldn't do it. I was
It
like,
went
okay.
forever.
It
Yeah.
went so long. And I was like, I packed up, I had a table there and I packed up my table. And so I was like back and forth. And one time I
Yeah.
came and I was like, oh, I think this would be good. And I was like, I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm out. And it
Yeah.
was interesting because a couple of people that I talked with who had spoken with her that had
Mhm.
taken the time and
Yeah.
like spoken with her said it was like a life-changing experience for them.
Sure.
And because they had said, you had mentioned it was like Christ would have done, and that it was as her position in like she is ministering in his name. And so it was just, I was like, that it was such a missed opportunity.
It
So
was.
that is a regret that I hold in my heart.
Oh, don't. Yeah. There will be other opportunities. Christ is always ministering through his servants, and it's just amazing. Like I said, we didn't expect it. We were blown away. I was sitting in the awards gala at one of the tables there, and I kept looking back to see to see if the
Yes.
line was getting any shorter, if it was
Yeah.
moving,
Yeah.
and it just kept going and going and going.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was interesting that happened at that gala that was really neat, there was a Korean woman sitting at my table at the gala, and Gail Sears, you've probably heard of Gail Sears. She's an
Sorry,
accomplished
I
WordPress
haven't.
author,
Tell
and she
me
was
about.
there. Gail Sears, she was there with
Yeah.
her husband, and I introduced myself to this Korean woman and just to find out who she was and why she was there. And it turned out she was up for one of the awards at the gala for a
Mm,
book called A Necessary Lie. And it was the story that was told briefly in The Ensign a few
mm,
years ago about how her and her husband escaped North Korea and how they found Christianity and how they found the church and joined the church. And now they live in Lehigh. I think she calls herself Vivian. I can't remember their Korean names. I apologize. But we sat there and we talked with her, and Gail Sears had just finished her book. She was sitting at the same table with the
mm,
lady who had escaped from North Korea. Gail was so beside herself with pure joy that she got to meet this person. It was amazing. It was a lot of fun.
So a similar thing had happened to me. I had just finished A Slow March of Light, a
Okay.
phenomenal book. And we have author signings events. Heather Moore was there, and I was like, what? You are the author of this book? And it was so exciting for me to put the face to
Oh,
the name
yeah.
of someone that had
Yeah.
spent so long
Yeah.
doing it. So that was really fun. Okay, so one question I do talk about LDSPMA a lot because I feel like it's made a huge impact on me.
Oh, good. Good.
For a little while you did the organization did a essential no enlightened business fundamentals with Daniel
Yes.
Blumberg and Douglas Pugh, and I
Yes.
took that class and studied with them for a year. It was phenomenal. I feel like I look up
Good.
to those
Good.
two still as mentors. They are exceptional humans, wonderful business minds, and
Mm.
even more exceptional people. You mentioned things like new things that are coming. Is
Mhm.
that something that you're going to keep going, or tell me?
We would like to. So that was new last year. That was a new thing. And they got a critical mass of people that signed up to do it. And then at this past conference, they wanted to see if they could get another critical mass of people for the next year, and they couldn't. They couldn't get enough people to sign up for it. But that doesn't mean it's not going to come back around. So we would like for them to be able to do that again. But for this year, they just didn't get enough people. So hopefully that'll come back around for next year. And of course, we have the podcast, we have the master classes. I just participated in my first Zoom call. They have the monthly Zoom calls. And so I joined that one yesterday, and that was kind of fun. And then we are starting a new membership program. We're starting to try and make more things available to our members. Like we'll have a membership directory they can access. We'll have a place where they can promote their products and give discount codes and things like that on their products. So we're moving into some different things to enable people to improve their talents, but also reach people, right? Reach that consuming audience that will benefit from the light of Christ that they're trying to share.
If you're a storyteller, entrepreneur, artist, or creative of any kind who wants to share light and truth through your work, don't miss the LDS PMA conference happening October 16th through the 18th. It's one of the most uplifting and energizing events of the year. Whether you're just starting out or have years of experience, you'll find a powerful community of like minded creators, inspiring keynotes, hands on workshops, and meaningful connections that last far beyond the weekend. I can honestly say this conference isn't about just learning, it's about being reminded why your work matters. You can find all the details and register at ldspma.org. Come be part of something truly special this October. We talked about this earlier about like the loneliness of writing.
Yeah.
And I feel like it is like finding your people has made a
Mhm.
huge difference. I feel like having the conference and then
Yeah.
volunteering and having the class, I was looking for an illustrator for a book that I'm writing, and I met him in class.
Oh,
And
good.
I like, so our relationships are continue. I meet monthly with two other people
Mhm.
from the class. And so I feel like it makes such a difference. Like meeting the people that are in your same boat
Oh, yeah.
that are trying to do something.
And we have at the conference on the Thursday. So the conference is primarily Friday, Saturday, plus a Thursday night. But the Thursday during the day, we offer the workshops. And those have been really useful to people. One of the most popular ones has been Brandon Mull. And he sells out. We put as many people as we can in his class. And this year he said he wanted to do it again. So it looks like it's pretty certain that we're going to have Brandon Mull again teaching a class on fiction writing. And we've got a bunch of other really great names coming in. I can't say some of them because we've got to make sure they're all confirmed. But Brandon Mull is pretty certain for this fall as well. So good.
That's incredible. I feel like so Thursday, just for those people that are listening, you should come. Thursday is your intensives. And so it's like, I can't remember, 4 hour class. Is that right?
Yeah, about 3 to 4 hours. There are morning sessions and there are afternoon sessions.
And so those are like the intensive ones. But how cool would
Mhm.
it be to learn from Brandon Mull?
And one of the highlights
Yeah.
too that people really enjoyed was in the middle of that, we had a special lunch hour presentation by Aaron Sherinian,
Hmm.
who is the communications director, whatever his
Wow.
title is, right? Aaron
Wow.
Sherinian. And he gave a fabulous presentation during the lunch hour, and people just loved it. They just ate that up. So that was really good. That was new for this conference as well, this past conference.
One thing that they've done in the past, and I don't actually know just because what I was doing this year was different than what I have been doing in previous years. But one thing that I thought was so wonderful is like a networking like time where you can
Yeah,
go and like
yeah.
break out into whatever it is that you're into, like you have a little moment. Did they do that this time?
We did it. It has taken different forms over the years and would keep trying to evolve it and improve it. Well, there's a lot of natural networking that happens at the conference,
Yes,
right? That
absolutely.
happens, right? And I've been able to take advantage of a lot of that and just love it. But we do try to provide some networking opportunities. And I don't think this past year went quite as well on the networking side as we wanted it to, but we've got some new ideas for this coming year that will improve it. So, yes, we will be doing some intentional networking activities and opportunities, providing those for people, in addition to the natural networking, the organic networking that's going to happen, right?
Yeah, it is awesome because as you go, it usually with conference lunch is included because it goes all day on Friday
Yeah,
and Saturday. And
right.
as you sit down, you don't know who you're going to be like at the table with. Like you don't know who you're going to
Yeah.
sit next to. And same with the classes, have no idea who's going to be sitting on your right or your left. And so
Oh, yeah.
you say that there is natural networking. Absolutely, there is natural
Yep.
networking. Is there anything else that you feel like we need to learn, need to know about LDSPMA?
Well, again, we continue to try to expand our network of partners that we engage with. One of the new ones at this past conference was Zion's Indie Film Festival. And on Thursday night, so they actually sponsored the gala and the Thursday night activities. And then they showed a film, one of their films. They showed that in the Reagan Theater there at UVU, at the Sorensen Center at UVU. And I'm kicking myself because I missed that because I'd already seen the movie. I'm a member of the Angel Guild and I had seen it on the Angel Guild app. It was about that boy who was trapped in an old abandoned mine, and
Mm-hmm.
it was in Utah. It was back in the 70s or 80s, I think it happened. But Kirby Hayborn was in it, and I'd already seen the movie, so I thought, well, I don't need to go see the movie. I can just go to my hotel. I live up in Richmond, so I got a hotel. And I wish I would have stayed because Kirby was there. Kirby actually decided to show up for this.
Oh, oh.
And I've met Kirby before. He's done the audiobooks for some of my books. And it's always fun to be there and talk with Kirby. In fact, he just finished one for me, the second of the Servant of Helaman series. He just finished that one up for me.
So that actually segues perfectly because I want to talk about, I feel like we've talked about our organization that we're both part of and loving, but I want to shift into you as a creator. It is incredible to me that you have such a like a business background, that you were thriving and did so well in that industry. You're a business leader, and then you kind of are pivoting and are like doing extraordinary things in your
Mhm.
writing career. Let's talk about things you're not good at. Can you name any?
Let's see, what am I not good at? I am not good at any sort of cooking or baking for sure. Yeah.
Same. My favorite thing to cook is like soups where you can just
Mhm.
go rogue and add whatever you feel like you're in
Mhm.
the mood for. That doesn't work well with baking. So that's my culinary tip for you today. But let's go back to the things that you are amazing. Tell us about your writing journey. Like, how did that happen?
Well, I've always loved writing. I had some talent as an artist, but I loved to write. I loved to read. I consumed in middle school, I consumed fantasy books and books on World War II,
Mm.
those two combined, which, by the
Wow.
way, in my first fantasy book, I'm combining both those things, some World
Wow.
War II stuff with some fantasy stuff with dragons and everything. So that was fun to kind of do that mishmash. But I loved it. I loved writing. And part of me thought, well, I could be an author, but I was kind of risk averse. And I got into college and I was good at math and physics and things like that. And I loved politics. And so I got into college, and before my mission, I majored in political science. That I declared my major as political science, thinking, well, I'll be a lawyer. That's a safer career for me where I could make more money and support a family and all that good stuff. And then I had an honors econ 110 class at BYU taught by James Curl, and I just absolutely loved it. My second semester of my freshman year at BYU, loved it. Then went on my mission, came back, switched my major to economics, decided to go the business route. Again, safer, forgotten all about becoming an author at that point. I went into business. I got an MBA and then I started my career. I enjoyed my career. I enjoyed the people that I got to know. I got to live in different parts of the country and travel to different parts of the world and meet all kinds of interesting people and get involved in all kinds of interesting projects. And it was all good. But then when I had that opportunity to semi-retire, it was time. And it's always interesting how the Lord sets these things up. It was time then to shift into that, first passion, which was writing and sharing. It's really sharing my testimony of the gospel through my writing. That's what it is, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. I'm about to publish a nonfiction book. The study guide for Barabbas is nonfiction, but it has quotes from the fiction book. So you can kind of say, well, it's not true fiction or true nonfiction. But I'll be publishing a true nonfiction book here shortly on intense stewardship models from the Book of Mormon. And I'm passionate about all of that. In fact, I'm going to present a 45-minute presentation at the Book of Mormon Evidence Conference on just that, the intense stewardship examples that we see from the Book of Mormon, like Nephi and Captain Moroni and Mormon himself, and some of the women like Sariah and others. So this last 5 years, I still work part-time for this big company in Chicago. And I can spend the rest of my time involved in LDSPMA and doing my own writing. And it's been a lot of fun. And I feel like I'm hopefully doing a little bit of good.
I think it's such a good premise to come from. You had mentioned that kind of writing for like with the spirituality was a surprise to you. But I also hear you saying that your writing feels like a spiritual journey. So how do those two, can you help bridge that gap for me?
Yeah, well, I figured that I would write science fiction and fantasy because that's what I enjoy reading the most. And I figured, oh, that's what I would write. And I wanted to write clean fiction. I didn't want to write anything that was too edgy. But it has surprised me just how much I'm able to utilize that fiction that I'm writing, even in the sci-fi and the fantasy realms, how much I can use those vehicles to move the testimony of Christ forward, right? And then the second thing that surprised me was just some of the inspiration to go write some of these books like Barabbas. I was called Barabbas. I never expected to write a biblical historical fiction book. Never entered my mind until one day I was reading the account again and it just struck me, boy, this is really interesting. What was this like from Barabbas's perspective? Who was he really? And there isn't much to find about who he was, where he came from, and where he went after that. But we can start to think about what that might have been like and put ourselves in those shoes, right? He was a Jewish rebel that was fighting against the Romans. They hated him. He was a notable prisoner. He's listed as a murderer in the New Testament, as a thief, as a robber, and as this notable prisoner, a seditionist as well. So the Romans hated him, which made it harder for Pontius Pilate to let him go because his own people, the Romans, hated him because he'd probably killed Romans, right? But he got so much pressure from the Jewish leadership that he finally let Barabbas go. And then we don't know really what happened. Well, Barabbas was there. He saw Christ. He personally witnessed who he was and what he did. And he would have had to make a choice. And we can put ourselves in those shoes and think, okay, here's my background. I've been fighting for Jewish freedom, right? And I've gotten myself in big trouble with the Romans, and they're about to kill me. And boom, all of a sudden, I'm free. And this is the guy. And I've heard about him. I mean, everybody knew who Jesus of Nazareth was. I've heard about him. I know a little bit about what he's been teaching. Do I want to find out more? I mean, essentially, I owe this man my life, right? And so some people have said, and I get this feedback from people, they'll say, well, Barabbas was just a bad person. He would never have accepted Christ. There have been a lot of really bad people in the history of the world who have completely 180'd their lives and followed Christ. Mm-hmm. Hardcore gang members have done that, right? So, I dismiss that argument. outright because there's too much evidence to the contrary.
Mhm.
And so I chose a path of redemption for Barabbas and him being mentored by the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul was so much fun to work with. I ended up doing a trilogy. So there's the first book, and then there's Pillars of Barabbas is book 2, and the Barabbas Legacy is book 3, and the Apostle Paul is in there, and Cornelius the centurion is in all those books. So much fun to delve into that history and just those events. And I'm making up other events, but I'm also bringing in things that are happening in the world in the Roman Empire. You see the siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD, the year of 4 emperors in 68 AD, which is incredibly bloody. You see the eruption of Mount Vesuvius when we get into the story of Sophia. So I wrote one book from a female perspective, which I never expected to do as well. And that's the first spin-off to the Barabbas series. And so I do a daughter. Barabbas's daughter, Sophia. We don't know that he had a daughter named Sophia, but she travels around with the Apostle John, who is no young chicken anymore, right? This is in the 70s and 80s AD. And she wonders how he has so much energy. Well, we know why John had so much energy, right?
Mhm.
He had asked the Lord, and we see a lot of clarification around this in Doctrine and Covenants. I think it's section 7. He had asked the Lord to let him stay and help save souls. And the Lord said, okay. And so here he is. He's got some sort of a transformed body, and he's still here, and he's ministering. So it's been just such an interesting, unexpected journey, and so much fun since I love writing. I'd love to sit down and come up with these ideas and tease them out, figure out how I'm going to get from point A to point B with my idea. Of course, I get to work with lots of really good editors and illustrators and artists and such. And there's been some really, really fun collaborations there.
That's amazing. I actually even like tried to practice saying his name. It is such an interesting point of view. I think it is such an interesting point of
I
view.
used to always call him Barabbas,
Mm,
how I grew up calling it. And then the broader Christian, I learned after I wrote the book that the
mm,
broader Christian world tends to call him Barabbas. So I was like, okay, that's who I'm marketing the book to. I market the Barabbas books not just to LDS Christians, but
mm.
to the broader Christian world. And I've done lots of interviews with non-LDS Christians about Barabbas. And so I pronounce it Barabbas now just naturally.
I think that's so wonderful. I love the idea of unifying. And I think that that's something that I am trying to do a little bit more of right now is just to try and find the things with different religions. Like there are so many
Yeah.
more things that bring us together than divide us. And what an incredible thing that you're doing within the Christian community.
And
That's
we're trying, by the way, I love that you're working with Malia and others on the podcast. We're trying to promote that more. And we got a new marketing director, Zachary Konecki, and he's really good at getting social media attention on things. And so we've got him engaged, and we're really trying to boost this because I've listened to some of the episodes of the podcast we have, and they're really good. They're really useful. They're not very long,
Mhm.
so they're manageable. A Joe Rogan podcast is 2 hours. I don't have two
Yes.
hours normally to
Yes.
listen
Yes.
to an
Yes.
entire Joe Rogan podcast. Or some of these other ones are really long form, but 30 minutes, right? They're usually about 30 minutes, maybe a little
Mhm.
more.
Mhm.
And that's
Mhm.
those are good. And I can maybe multitask and listen to those. And boy, we've got some great opportunities with that. Like
Yeah.
I just watched the one who was being interviewed. It was McKay Coppins.
Yes.
I just
Yes.
watched that one.
It's
Oh,
incredible. I think some of
yeah,
the talent and the
yeah,
people that are coming on, Connie Sokol, that was one of the classes that I really enjoyed. That
yeah.
woman is just incredibly inspirational. And it is really interesting to come together and see how people are using their talents in different ways,
Mhm.
but that are kind of united in purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been really fun to be a part of this podcast for sure. And I think that it's fun to see the changes and momentum that's moving forward as well.
Oh yeah, and the Lord is helping us. We're doing our best to make good plans and do good things, but we just have to step back sometimes and say, "Wow, the Lord really made that work and made that
Yeah.
work." And sometimes in a different way than we expected. And it's just awesome. He knows what he's doing.
So, what kind of final words would you say for someone that is trying to find their people?
The best thing to do is just to make sure that you're staying as close as you can to the Lord, that you're being obedient and you're trying to feel the Spirit and you're trying to find what the Lord is telling you to do. And as you listen to the Lord and let Him guide you on a path, you will find your people. They will come. You won't have to look really all that hard. You'll start to find them because you'll be doing your best to follow the Lord's direction, and those people will be put in your path. It really is an amazing process. It always has been. Joseph Smith experienced the same thing. Oliver Cowdery. How in the world did he find Oliver Cowdery? Right? The Lord puts those things in place as long as we're doing our best. And Gordon B. Hinckley was famous for saying that. All the Lord asks is you do your best. Seek him and do your best, and he will help you.
That's wonderful advice. I wish we had more time. Thank you so much for being here and for telling us more about your journey. Thank you for the Call to Create podcast team for making this episode possible. Thank you for listening, and we hope this episode will help you remember your why on your creative journey.